Parola.
Wow, is it June 5th?
Yeah.
2021?
Yeah.
What month?
June in 2021. Because they used the 1997. And you know, problem be la nigga, feel that I mean, every transition the people realize what they have. We said that the 1997 constitution was inadequate. We didn't so the process that we are doing as sanctioned by the 1997 constitution. We lacked the 1997 constitution.
Absolutely. Now, okay. Okay, we all should stand by now. I definitely think that you should join. Well, warm welcome to you, Sait, Matty, and Omar, Ceesay, and to all of our beautiful listeners and those that are watching us from abroad and in the country. This is a show being hosted by Kerfatu, and it is arranged by International Republican Institute. Well, we just have to say to be or not to be. Well, we know that is a Shakespearean question that is asked when people are faced with a crucial decision. In the Gambia, we are faced with no less a decision to make. But just for the sake of the history of it, we all know that in 2016, the Gambia had an election and we elected a new president. We defeated dictatorship. And when we did that, we then decided that we need to rebuild a country that is damaged by corruption, damaged by human rights violations. And after 3 years, or nearly 4 years of consultations now, we have decided that an instrument that should guide us to do that rebuilding, to birth a new Gambia, is now here. But that instrument is, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you say it, is hanging by the thread. Yeah. And we are here to discuss the fate of that instrument. And I have here with me Sait Matty, who is a political science lecturer. Well, Sait is many things, much more than a political science lecturer. He's one of the most dynamic young persons you can find in this country. And then we have the most popular National Assembly member, Omar Ceesay. Omar actually is a young person who has won a lot of hearts and minds in the country in recent times for his stance on issues at the National Assembly. And I am Saikou Jammeh. You are not used to seeing someone like me moderating an event. This is probably a very few times that I am. But then you probably want to welcome you know, some introductory remarks before we get into the discussion. So I'm going to start with you, and then we go to Omar Ceesay.
Thank you, Saikou, and thank you, Kerfatu and the IRI for organizing this timely event. And I think, and also to the viewers, because we're at a point where, you know, we cannot sit, we cannot stand. All we need to do is to ensure that we participate in this important process about a new constitution, but a constitution that will perhaps birth the new Gambia that we all yearn for.
Well, good day to all listeners, and of course those who are watching from anywhere one might find him or herself, and of course extending my greetings to Kerfatu and those that I share the platform with. Of course, I believe that IRI, International Republican Institute, also must be thanked, because they have been contributing immensely towards the progress of this nation, especially issues of national importance. Obviously, we believe that, or I hold the view that we will talk about issues of national importance as long as this platform is concerned. And we must not have doubt in our mind that the issue circulating within the town is about the draft constitution that is before the National Assembly. I believe the subject of discussion will be entirely surrounding that matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my first question will actually go to you, Sait. I mean, as a political scientist, you know that as a country, we've come quite far from 1965 to 2020. That's precisely 55 years. And we've gone through some constitutional building processes since independence, from internal rule, from 63, and then 64 constitution, then 65 constitution, and then we had the 1970 until the coup in 1994, and then 97 we had the 1997 constitution, and then this one. I mean, in terms of consultations, I mean, how would you rate the process that led to the coming up of this one that we have compared to the previous ones?
Saikou, for me, I think the process has been historical in the sense that for me, this is the first time I'm someone who's also interested in constitutional development, and I did explore, the processes. I'm more interested in processes because I believe when processes are clear and when processes are transparent, then the outcome would definitely be something that is generally acceptable. So if you compare all the processes that we have undergone in the previous, whether it is in the 1970, of course there was a referendum, there was some sort of a debate, but even the 1997 constitution, we know that we came from a military rule down, but then the 2016 elections and 2017 is historical in the sense that for the first time there was an electoral turnover. And secondly, Gambians wanted a new Gambia. The kind of Gambia that they wanted was a Gambia that respects democracy. And so if you follow the current debate or even the process that led to this bill, you saw that people took charge of the process. They participated in the process. They've sent their views. It's not something like that everybody agreed, but then people agree that there was a process that was well consulted. They were well consulted, and so right now we are at a process where you have the popular will of the people, and the views of a minority that are also representing the people, and so this is where we are, and it also still make the process historical. So with the views of the people lead.
Thank you very much. So let me come to you. I mean, because this is probably the most important 2 weeks in the history of what we call New Gambia. I mean, can you please take us through the process from when it was tabled before the National Assembly to now we're having the second reading? Tell us where we are and how we get to where we are.
Well, thank you very much. It will interest every listener, of course, to know the procedures to be followed as long as the proceeding of the National Assembly is concerned. But I must acknowledge the fact that the young people fought tooth and nail to ensure that we end dictatorship in this country. So they must be applauded for that. And it doesn't stop there. We never just wanted to end dictatorship in this country, and that's where we are going to draw the curtain, but we wanted to go further, and we want to define the Gambia that we really want. That is why when I showed that before him, I was impressed. And that is...
yeah.
So it shows that the
Sait
process
has a
has been
beautiful Gambia we want, sir. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Well, the process that we are actually dealing with now, this is not something that we are just aiming for, but the entire process is something that we were aiming for since we end dictatorship. And it is about time that we define the Gambia that we want. And in doing so, the people must take charge. And for people to take charge, of course, the reforms that were promised by the coalition government in 2016, some of the reforms, they are on the way going. And of course, we have some that are already done and completed. We just need to take another step. Notwithstanding, the people, of course, the CRC was empowered by the National Assembly to exercise a particular function. And part of their function is to go around and the entire country and beyond the country to consult the people, to sound their opinion, to read their mind as to the manner in which they want to be governed. And institutions, stakeholders, of course, they define their institution so as for it to be captured in the draft constitution in question. That is done. And now that they completed what actually they were tasked to do within the country and beyond the country, the bill is actually before the National Assembly, I mean the draft constitution, if I say a bill here. And the first reading, the publication is already done, that is the gazetting. The bill must be gazetted for twice before the introduction of that bill in the National Assembly. And thereafter, the first reading must take place. And if I could explain that, That is when a copy of the bill will be handed over to the clerk of the National Assembly for him or her to read loudly the short title of the bill. And that has been done. That is the stage of the first reading.
Okay.
That is just the first reading.
Okay.
To hand over a copy of the bill to the clerk of the National Assembly for him or her to read the subtitle of the bill. That has been done. Thereafter, now 1 working day is required for the bill to move to the next level. That is the second reading of the bill. And the second reading of the bill, that's where the minister will move a motion to ensure that the National Assembly members consider the bill that is before the Assembly. And there, if that is done, if the bill is seconded and considered, then the National Assembly members will debate on the merit and the principle of the bill. Just that. The principles and the merits of the bill will enlighten members to know what actually the document entails. And the bill in question, that is the draft constitution, as we are speaking. Now the bill is before the National Assembly. We are debating on the merit and the principle of the bill. That we call the second reading of the bill. And the way it is now, the 1997 constitution, according to or in accordance with section 2264 of the constitution, requires that for the bill to move from this stage, that is the second reading, to the next level, that is the third reading, then the bill must secure at least 42 members votes that are in favor of the bill, so that we can move to the next level, as well as the third reading. So therefore, National Assembly members, upon debating, we understand that issues must come. We understand that controversial issues must come. But with all that, we are just trying to surface things on the principle and the merit. That's what exactly we are dealing with. We must note that this is something, the document before us is the aspiration, mind, wisdom, and the opinion of the Gambian people. As a result, that is what we are just trying to offray ourselves with. So we pray that the bill might move to the next level.
Okay, and just to summarize, the bill has gone through first reading, wherein it was presented by the minister.
Exactly.
And then the stage we are at now is called the second reading, where it is presented by the minister again, and the NAMs discuss the merits and the principles of it.
Very well.
Well, from that stage, where does it go?
Very well. Well, upon discussing or debating on the principles and the general merits of the bill, then obviously, as a constitutional requirement, it doesn't apply maybe to ordinary bills. If suppose it's an ordinary bill, then from here automatically, whether accepted or not at that stage, the second reading, I mean, the bill will be referred to a special committee, select committee, standing committee, or a committee of the whole house. That is going to be automatic according to the standing order. Because standing order 62 to 79 define the procedures to be followed as long as introduction or bills are concerned in the National Assembly. So if we move from this stage, if we get the 42 members vote, because this constitution is saying at least 3/4 of the members in the National Assembly. That is 42 for the listeners to understand. Then if we secure that 42 members to vote in favor of the bill, now the bill will move to the third stage, that is the third reading. There, then the bill will be committed to a special committee, select committee, standing committee, or a committee of the whole house to do what? To investigate, to scrutinize, to see what actually are the things that the bill entails. And there they can do amendment to the clauses and of course the schedules that are in that bill. If that is done now, that committee will report in the National Assembly as to what they find out in that bill and what are some of the things that they really want to amend. But it doesn't mean that whatever that committee came up with in the National Assembly, it is automatically accepted. It's subject to plenary discussion and debate.
The discussion,
exactly.
the approval of the whole house.
Exactly. If they agree to amend or to remove some of the things that the committee recommended, even everything that is recommended by the committee, they have the powers to eliminate everything out. Everything is for the entire house to decide. So if that is done, then the third reading will come in. Then the third reading there, no member, whosoever, even the minister, nothing can be amended as long as the bill is concerned. There, another vote will be taken. Especially in this case, then there, before we move to the level of referendum, another 42 votes is required for us for the bill to be considered passed in the National Assembly.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Because we're going through the process for now. We know there are lots of politics around the issue. We will shelve that for now and then just talk about the process. But we're going to pause there for now and go to Sait. I mean, prior to the bill being presented or even gazetted by the president as required by the law, there were lots of debates and lots of fears as well from the people that the president is not going to actually have the AG to gazette the Constitution. And I would say there were contradictions as well, because the president's advisors, political, were saying that the Constitution was not good, in essence, okay? But then yet it went to the National Assembly now. I mean, how do you reconcile those two? I mean, there seems to be a contradiction there.
So for me, I think, you know, in constitutional making, there are two processes. There's the legal process, which our CRC, they did perfect job. They, for me, just the fact that they consulted the people widely, whether Gambian here or Gambian out there, and everybody had the chance to say anything. It was just like an open thing. What do you think about this? Bring it on. And I think they did that perfectly. And then the second part is the political process. And I think it's a political process, and that's where we are right now. It has to do with what the people want, or what, you know, how do we negotiate and compromise here and there. And I think, yes, for Parliament, I mean, for Cabinet, we've seen the Cabinet papers, we've seen that a lot of things that the people wanted, the Cabinet did not want that, for instance, because for me, the simple reason is that the people want to move forward, but the government or the Cabinet wants to stay wherever we are, and this was not the reason why we voted. So sometimes in terms of the political debate, this is what it is. What the question is about: do we move forward or do we stay back? And I think these are positions that need to be taken, because if you follow the historical process, the reason that led to the process itself, you saw that it was very practical. It was based on a history we do not want to repeat. Whether you talk about the TRRC, security sector reform, these are all dependent on what this final document is going to say, and so the politics is going to be there. But for me, what I think really what is happening is that is this two posts that we have, and there are people understanding that they don't need to be 42, but they can only be 15 to something less to disturb the whole process. And for me, the question is, you know, on whose behalf are you doing that? And for me, that's the most important question. Are you doing it on the behalf of the people, or are you doing it on the behalf of some political leadership for, you know, for what purpose as well? And I think for me, in terms of the discussion about the process, we need to say, are we going back to 1997, or are we moving forward with a lot of opportunities for the future? We're not saying that the Constitution is perfect, but what we are saying is also the decision has to be sent back to the people, for the people to decide whether they want it or not. Already we know in terms of the popular debate, you know, there was this issue of secularism there was this issue of, you know, so many other things. But the public have addressed those issues. Now our discussion is now between us and then the political class. But now specifically, our issue is between us and those parliamentarians that are trying to oppose and derail our process.
Still on the contradictions. The general feeling was that the Cabinet doesn't like the draft Constitution because some of their positions were not reflected in there, and probably the CRC acted in good faith. I mean, and then we had the president's advisors saying that the Constitution, you know, targeted the president, and therefore not good. But yet the president, the AG gazetted it, and then now it's in Parliament. Could that be interpreted as a stamp of approval from the Cabinet, saying that, well, regardless, I mean, we are going to put other interest first before the Cabinet's interest? Well, or is it saving I think it's still, yes, for another day?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Okay, like we want to save our face and then push the blame to somebody else. It's as simple as that. This is a political process. You know, me, I'm not, you know, the legal and all those things, the experts will talk about that. But for us, we need to talk about the political process. You know, when Cabinet say they don't support or agree on certain point, and most of the points they raise are the things that we wanted to run away from. For instance, people don't want the chiefs to be involved in the political process. Chiefs are traditional authorities. They are people that are seen and respected within their communities. We've done a survey, Afrobarometer, where it shows that the religious leaders and traditional authorities are one of the most trusted institutions in this country. We want the chiefs to be what they are, but for them, they want to control the chiefs because they feel like it is through the chiefs that they want to get re-elected. And the people say, we want to aid self-perpetuating rule, but they say, no. We don't only want end self-perpetuating rule, but we want to start with this now, because we are the people that voted you for a transition of 3 years. Now the transition is not 3 years. Now you push us to go to 5 years, and now we say we want to end self-perpetuation. It's as simple as that. It is what the people want versus what one individual wants. And in this country, if we want to move forward, if we want to end what happened in the past, we need to move forward. And in doing that, we need to have a new constitution.
Thank you. Because I want us to be very clear in terms of the process, because right now I think there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people are not clear as to what the process is about. But we know, just to repeat, that the first reading was done last week, Monday. And tomorrow, or day after tomorrow, Monday, we are going to have a continuation of the debate. And then will that continue? Whether that will continue to Tuesday, we are not really sure. But then if it continues, what follows that is the voting. Will the voting be made either on Monday or on Tuesday?
Well, it's a valid question. Obviously, I must acknowledge what he said, the fact that we want to have this constitution. Of course, we must define every aspect that we believe that it is relevant. But obviously, I can't remember, and I do emphasize this, that we never ask or task the CRC to go out there and just to suit the interests of an individual or to suit the interests of one political party. Of course, the legal processes are already followed. The legal expert did enlighten that. And maybe what is left now is about the political class to take their decision. And we are aware that we have different political parties, despite some political parties they don't have representative in the National Assembly, notwithstanding they have supporters who are out there waiting for them. Now, one thing I want to make emphasis on is the issue of the cabinet and, of course, the National Assembly members versus the general public.
Can we say, you will come to that. Can we talk about the process for now? No, we will talk about the politics of it. We will talk about the politics. Let's go to the process. Good. Well, let's go to the process.
Well, to enlighten better about the process to be followed in the National Assembly, like I said earlier, the first reading is done. Of course, this stages started from the gazetting. That is, the publication was done twice, and of course from there the bill was introduced before the National Assembly. Remember, a bill can always be introduced in the National Assembly by different individuals, either the president, the vice president, the ministers, National Assembly member, that's what you call a private member's bill, or a committee of the National Assembly. And the chairperson will be in charge of that bill. These are the people who can present a bill before the National Assembly. And here, history is going on. The Minister of Justice is the one who presented this bill before the National Assembly. The first reading was done, as I explained earlier, that a copy was handed over to the clerk of the National Assembly. That was read. And thereafter, a day after, then the debate on the second reading could start. There, the minister will move a motion for the members to consider the bill for the second reading to take place. And I explained that the second reading, of course, the National Assembly members will debate on the merits and the principle.
Will be on Monday.
Exactly. No, that has already started. That has already started on Wednesday. We are already on that debate.
Certainly,
That where the opportunity is given to all members to raise, of course, issues or concern pertaining to the bill that is presented, but basically on the general principles and merit of the bill. And that is the process which is...
But in terms of the timelines, do we see it ending on Monday or Wednesday?
Okay, that's what I want to clear. It depends. It can even take 2, 3, 4 days. It depends. There is no time frame for it. As long as every individual, you have something to voice out, that opportunity must be given to you. There is no time limit for it.
Once you can come and come again.
Once. You can speak as much as you can. There is no time limit for you. You can raise as many issues as you want. That is already always there. But as soon as the intervention of members who have concern pertaining to that bill is done, then obviously a vote will be taken. As I cited Section 2264 of the Constitution, 1997. We need 42 members to move to the next level. To understand better, then if we move to the next level, then this bill will be given to a committee, special select standing or the committee of the whole house. And it is obvious that there is already a committee established called the Human Rights and Constitutional Matters Committee, in which I am a member of. The likelihood for the bill to be referred to that committee is very high.
Or maybe a special select one.
Yes.
Which will be kind of bipartisan.
All is possible, but here, remember, this committee I'm talking about, Human Rights and Constitutional Matters. All political parties in the National Assembly are represented. All political parties in the National Assembly are represented in that committee. So this is fair enough, I believe.
So when it gets to the committee, still in terms of the timelines, do they have any...
There's time bound. We need 16 weeks.
16 weeks.
16 weeks
for the committee to come back.
Yes. We need 16 weeks for the committee to complete the task given to them by the plenary. If they are unable or capable to complete the task within the 16 weeks, they have to go back to the plenary and seek extension. If you can understand
16 weeks is about 4 months.
4 months,
yes, of course. 16 weeks.
That's
what they need.
Considerable amount of time.
But normally, in fact, you can just have it two weeks to complete your work. It depends. But this is a constitutional issue, and it entails a lot of legalities. And we are not drafters. Maybe you can tell me, but I can't remember any of us in the National Assembly being a drafter. So maybe we might need that legal experience or experts to come and assist if we want to amend anything in that constitution.
So still on the process, when they receive the copy from the National Assembly, when it is given to them, what happens? How do they go about their business at that stage?
With the committee?
Yeah,
of course. I mean, we have the right to investigate. We have the right to amend to some clauses that we deem fit, or we have the right to amend some of the schedules that we deem fit, as long as the draft is concerned. So these are some of the things that the committee can do.
Do you do that at your own discretion, or do you consult?
Very well. The committee is empowered to summon anybody to come and listen to the committee. The committee can put questions. The committee can allow you to raise your concern, like, for instance, the IEC, for instance, the political parties, for instance, NYC, for instance, NYSS, and you talk of other institutions. If they have issues, for instance, that are not definitely captured, and they believe that this is not going to help their institution in the long run, we can always invite those institutions to come forward and raise issues of their concern. Then there the committee will see what actually can be captured as long as amendment is concerned. So thereafter the committee will report, but it's up to the plenary. A committee is just a portion, it's just a sector of the plenary that is given an assignment to carry out. Upon carrying that assignment, you need to report back. It left to the entire members to agree or not to agree, but the majority carries the vote. If majority of the members in the National Assembly agree that we really want what the committee presented, then so be it. Then we move to the voting of the third reading. That is, we still need another 42 members to vote in favor of that.
So in terms of the process, we pause there. We're going to come back. We're going to exhaust this process because we need to be very clear on it. But when you look at the president's speech at the State of the Nation address, there was, of course, mention of the fact that the CRC had completed its work and it's presented as, and it's registered as a milestone by the president. What we didn't see in the speech is the president coming out to articulate his position on this, so to make a special case for why Gambians should embrace the Constitution. I mean, would that have been right? I mean, or he should just stay on the fence and allow people to decide?
Well, I think he's the one that initiated it in the first place.
Yeah.
It came from his electoral victory, actually, and it was part of his campaign promise. It's, that's why I said this is very historical.
Yeah.
Here is a promise that was made to the Gambian people.
Yeah.
And now what we are saying is that being silent or taking defense, it seems like you've started something and then you want to run away from it because it does not favor you anymore. And for me, that's what I see. I think, for instance, the president is very passionate about ECOMIC, and he went all the way to ECOWAS, talk about the extension of ECOMIC, and then we are talking about a constitutional process with all the, everything that you're talking about, security sector reform, TRRC, everything is dependent on this particular document. But still, you either mention it, haphazard way, or you tend to run away. It's not showing interest. And like we've said before, just the fact that cabinet released those kind of paper that was not in line with the general views of the public shows that also the president may be in line, because everything is done in his name or is done for him. For me, I think for him, he's comfortable with the 1997 constitution. But are we Gambians comfortable with the 1997 constitution is the question we could
what I find quite intriguing is that if the Gambia's transition process were a human being, the constitutional building process would be the soul of it.
Yes.
Why wouldn't the government be in full and more support of it?
Some people will call it political expediency, and perhaps it's more when. And I think this has been the problem in this country. One, we don't like to tell each other the truth because we are small people, we know each other, and so we have that kind of masla system that we know. But what is here is that somebody has spent people's money, somebody has tell people that this is what they want, people bought into it, and then we come all the way to the final stage, and then you want to remove things from us. And that's not the country that we want. We talk about New Gambia. There's no New Gambia without a new constitution for me. What is the New Gambia? It's talking about the fact that we transition, we move from the old 1997 constitution. Of course, everything that we are doing is built on the 1997 constitution. But there are a lot of issues that we don't want. And then we believe that a new constitution will guarantee those rights. But the other issue, and I think the contradiction also, is the fact that you've received money, international support, international goodwill, and today you want to embrace the whole country because just that the fact that there is no time limit, or somebody was talking about, there is time limit, but then because the time limit, you want it to start somewhere, does not start here, so you taking that as a problem. And secondly, you talk about because of there is no policies on language, they are giving excuses to the monies that we have spent. And at the end of the day, the international community will look at us, who say, look at this, with all the hope, all the monies that we have spent, and now it's zero. Who will give you money again to do anything else?
And before I go to Omar, what if, and this is a big if, we all know, what if the draft constitution doesn't make it through the second reading stage? What will be the political ramifications for the Gambia?
If the draft constitution, if this current bill does not pass the second reading, that is like a no, like we're going back to zero. We have the 1997 constitution to continue, but we'll have the opportunity to contest as long as he wants. There is because sometimes we blame Jammeh, we look at the personalities, but then we forgot to understand the institutional and legal frameworks that guide the person. Some of the things that Jammeh was doing was sanctioned by the 1997 constitution, having the power to appoint, dismiss, hire, fire anyhow. Is still there, and we've seen with Barrow with this constitution, he has already started explaining those things. And the issue of decentralization also, of course the 1997 constitution did talk about that, but this constitution is ensuring that the people understand and also get development to their doorstep. There are stringent measures put in that place. And we talk about, for instance, the other issue why I think is important to pass this constitution, because it has expanded the rights, fundamental rights of people, even the socio-economic rights, education, all those things have been added.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, also, for me, the most important part is the farmers. Farmers have 50 years, they've been the leading producers, our survival, they continue to do that, but today they are still the poorest. But this constitution has provided for those things.
We will have our own second reading debate.
Yes,
so
because
into the constitution. But we've gone through the first reading, second reading, And then you said, well, if it goes through, we go into a committee stage. And then the committee has about 16 weeks. This seems to be like a very prolonged, if not a drawn out process. And then after that, the committee reports. So when the committee reports, then we have what we call the third reading. And when we have the third reading, then another decision is made in it. And we need 42 members 2 times. What is the mood in the National Assembly right now? I'm quite sure you're quite eager to get into the politics of it, but there you go now. What is the mood in the National Assembly now?
I know that every National Assembly member, of course, you are elected in one way or the other to represent the people out there, the vulnerable people, the helpless people, the voiceless people, and of course the jobless people, I would call it, and including the farmers that he is referring to. So if that trust is vested on me, if they have that confidence in me, that trust, and of course everything for me to represent them in the National Assembly, I think I have no other thing to do but to represent their interests. And representation is about consultation. Consultation in a form of participation. We need to participate. How do you ensure that they participate? You as an individual, it is your duty and responsibility to engage your people toward participation, to hear from them, to listen to them, and anything that they think that is to their interest. These are some of the things you are actually representing in the National Assembly. Because I am not called Omar Ceesay, I am called the member for Nyamina East, meaning if I am talking any single word that I altered in the National Assembly, meaning is the people of Nyamina East speaking. Any error that I make in the National Assembly, of course, the error is from the people of Nyamina East. That's how I would judge.
Well, you seem to be throwing some banter around, but like, what is the atmosphere like? I mean, of course, we know, you have supported this.
Good.
It's clear that not every National Assembly member shares your enthusiasm for the draft constitution, shares your belief in its goodness, if I may use that term. What is the atmosphere like? Is it a fight?
That is where exactly I am driving
okay.
That is where exactly I am driving at. I am just saying the atmosphere must be determined by the people. That's what I was trying to preempt. That whatever that one has to say, however the atmosphere must be, that must be determined by the people that you represent. This is what I was trying to explain. And if I have to say something, of course, that must be determined by the people of Nyamina East. And now looking at it, the draft is before us. We are debating on the general principle and merit of the bill. Obviously, every National Assembly member, I don't want to point out any finger, because me pointing out somebody to say Mr. A, B, and C is against the entire process or the Constitution, and the person happens to change his or her mind, then that does not sound well about myself. But obviously, listening from some of the members, I do know that others are in support, others are of course against the draft constitution.
There is division.
Not actually against the entire draft constitution, but a portion, maybe a provision, a clause, of course, a sector of the draft constitution. That is where the problem lies. I told my colleagues that every individual, even the people out there listening to us, even the farmer out there, they have something that is not definitely captured by the CRC. And we must know that not everything, not every element can be captured in this document. There must be certain things that must come in a form of what an act of parliament, I will call it, subsidiary legislation. These are things that can be done in the long run. And if we have that belief in us, obviously, that element of yours that you have that is not captured or that you don't need in the draft constitution should not just make you to vote against the entire process or the entire constitution. If you understand that these are things that we can remedy in the long run.
So clearly, we have a division in the National Assembly. How deep is this divide?
Well, deeply serious, I would say, because this started somewhere. Is the National Assembly versus the cabinet and the general public. But knowing that the cabinet already
should we be scared?
Of course, of course. After
even themselves,
yes, because we have established a commission, giving them so much money. The international community, they spend so much money on this reform. And this long-standing awaiting document just be thrown out there, that does not sound well as long as the history of this country is concerned. So there is already a division, I know.
There is a chance. There is a chance that the bill wouldn't go through the second reading stage.
That reading.
It wouldn't go into that.
It depends. Like I said earlier.
There is a chance.
It depends. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm hearing from some of the members, because we have huge members that are yet to speak on this. And I don't know what will be their stand. And I don't want to point finger to anybody. So obviously, we must listen to them and get what they have to say before the National Assembly. If they are definitely representing the people out there, one will know. You and I will know, even whereas you are not a member of parliament. But I know that there are controversial issues, and of course there is already a division. But one can always change his or her mind. That I can tell. But after hearing from them, then we will know what the result will be.
Sait, there is a chance that it will be rejected, right? Is there?
Yes.
You've been watching it. You've been following it.
Yes, there's a chance. The Honorable will not want to point finger, but I'll point finger at Honorable Magasi. I'll point finger at, Saikou Marong, for instance, because as a citizen of this country, some of the issues that they raise are not issues that we want generally. Because one is talking, for us, when the consultation was done, people said the issue of term limit. We want, and we did studies, we did research, we asked people, and people are saying they will vote for this constitution if it has term limits, and it has term limits. And then it has term limits, and even as early as 2018, with the Afrobarometer, we did studies, and then recently we have written a paper to say that the constitution, the draft constitution, reflects the views of the people in terms of when it comes to term limits, in terms of majoritarian system, and in terms of quota system for women, because it has also expanded that opportunity for that. So for of course, right now we don't know for sure, but then the indications are there that there are a lot of people, especially those, we fear that those that are close to Barrow, given, like sometimes you don't need to wait for everything to come to an end to understand where it is going. You've started with the cabinet paper being released, and we've seen the differences. And so if those people have people in parliament, they will do their bidding. They will try to, it is not illegal. It is not illegal to do that. But then what is the problem here is that it's the morality in terms of, you say you represent the people like Honorable did just mention, and at the end of the day you're speaking against what the people want. Who are you representing in reality?
We probably should go into the pitch dark heart of the devil, that is the politics at the National Assembly. I mean, right now. I mean, he spoke about the need to have 42. And then we know we have 58 National Assembly members. Unfortunately, we've lost one, which leaves us with 57. Excluding the speaker who wouldn't vote, which probably leaves us with about...
Honorable Tumanjai, who is not in town.
Tumanjai also is not in town, which leaves us about...
With and the Nyamina West,
56. So let's look at the dynamics. I mean, from the way you are, following the conversation and the debate at the National Assembly, who is in for the Constitution and who is not?
I think I wouldn't be able to generally say who is in who, because I haven't spoken to all of them. But then when you follow the debate, I want to believe that UDP, and even following social media, that then there's a UDP who's very in support of they're okay with the Constitution. DOI, PDIS is okay with the Constitution. I also see that GDC is okay with the Constitution, and I think Citizen Alliance and all of the other political parties that are just coming up, because it is this new Constitution that will open those environment for them. For APRC, I am not too sure, but then the general perspective is that APRC is one party that is generally accepted to be the likely party to oppose the bill. We don't expect, the current independents who are very close to Barrow to be opposing the bill. But then generally people accepted or thought that APRC would be the one to oppose the bill. But I'm saying that for APRC, perhaps they might do miscalculation, because if they're denying everything that happened in the past and want a new beginning, for me, it is in their best interest to have a new constitution that will provide them with the equal platform to move. But if they still want to stay with this 1997 constitution, they will further anger the people. And at the end of the day, the people are the ones that will decide. They will vote. Election is 2021.
So we go into the arithmetics now.
Yeah.
You said APRC.
The general, yeah, probably the general. Everybody will think.
And they have 5.
Yes.
And 5 out of 56. That leaves us with about 41. 49, right?
Yeah.
49. And then you spoke of Magasi, who is an independent candidate. And then you also, if I interpreted you correctly, that names that are aligned with the president are not necessarily in support of it.
Well, we've seen at least 2 or 1 of them speaking, and then you can tell sometimes. You don't need to be there for people to show you.
So, but already,
and NRP, we are not sure.
Okay.
You see, but then we've seen that also NRP is, slowly aligning to Barrow. So for NRP, people are not so sure where they are. I think they need to be clear.
I mean, from your vantage point, do you see them taking a stance that is different from the,
I don't know as a party where they are, but then I have trust in some of the MPs that they have, and then they have been standing up for democracy in this country for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And like we said, this is a decisive moment. It's either you are with us or against us. Or in terms of the people want to move forward, you want to hold them back.
But even from this very simple analysis now, as we crunch the numbers, we know that the odds are very great.
Yeah, they're, needing 42, 42, and then you only need about 15 to say no, or 14 to say no, and then that's high. Already there is about, you counted, Barrow has already, we can say Barrow has already 8. How many more does he need? And if APRC, if we are certain that APRC is against the constitution, that's over. And the fact that the process, if the process fails under this second reading, then it means like everything is 0. Everything else is 0. 2 years, 3 years, everything is 0.
If we couldn't go past the second reading stage, what happens?
Well, we have to go back to the drawing board, of course. If you cannot pass there, then whosoever is responsible, because I said the Minister of Justice is responsible in charge of the bill, then he has to go back and better prepare himself and whatsoever that is going to convince again the members who were not really in support. Then we can start the process again from publication, gazetting, and of course the first reading, second reading up to the final stage. This is what one has to do, because we are not ignorant of some of the bills that were actually, or motion or whatever we might call it, that were rejected in the National Assembly. The cabinet, they have to go back and do a fresh assignment, bring it back into the National Assembly to better convince the members.
How is that going to be like? We don't seem to have much time. I mean, that's our biggest enemy,
it might not,
because we are going into polls next year.
Exactly. It might not necessarily be setting another CRC to go out there and make a further consultation. It might not necessarily be that. But the period that is required for the bill to come back in the National Assembly, they just have to go back. Then, if they feel that there will be another amendment at their own level, because the cabinet, they have no power whatsoever to amend even a punctuation mark in that constitution. That is why nothing was done about the constitution. That can only be done in the National Assembly. That is why the bill is presented in the National Assembly. Now, if the National Assembly members feel that they are not in support of this and they throw it out, meaning the person in charge will go and report what actually transpired in the National Assembly. If they deem it fit to start first, so as to bring it in the National Assembly, so be it. But these are the process to be followed.
It may as well be that if it is rejected, probably the draft will be buried in the sands of history, and with it, the money that is spent on the hopes.
And that's the worry of every individual, considering the time, the energy, everything, I would say. And of course, engaging people having their input embedded in the Constitution, nothing more but just to say against the will of the people. That does not just really sound well to me.
You supported the Constitution on the floors of the National Assembly. I mean, why did you do it? Why?
Well, I stated that earlier. I said I trusted a set of individuals we call the CRC. I mandated them, I empowered them, that here is an assignment. You have the qualification, you have the experience,
integrity.
You have the technical know-how to do this assignment for me. And they went round, as per the terms of reference, they went round within the country and beyond the country to have this assignment done for me. Because one of the key things that they were asked to do, go and listen to the mind of the people. Go and get the aspiration of the Gambian people. Go out there for the Gambian people to define for you the way and the manner in which they want to be governed. So this is not just the making of the CRC. We must know that. They were there to write what actually people were asking them to write. And that is exactly what they did. It's not just from their own imagination. Because they are experts. They could have just go out there, call themselves somewhere else, copy and paste, because they are knowledgeable people. They have experience in this. And draft whatsoever that they feel should be in that constitution. But this is never the case. They go around, consult people, institutions, stakeholders, and all other sectors of government for them to inculcate what they are told. Are you getting the point?
So you truly believe, you, Omar Ceesay, you truly believe that the draft as it is captures the voices of Gambian citizens and it represents their hopes and aspirations for a better Gambia. You truly believe that?
Very well, because I did indicate that every single element of the draft constitution is from the Gambian people and majority carried the vote. You will understand that if you were following the CRC process when they were doing their consultation, you will get to a gathering district, a region, I will call it, people will push and pull. The subject under discussion, others will agree, others will disagree. But at the end of the day, all that they have to do is for those present to cast a vote. And that's how they will determine the majority. If you are able to establish that from one region to another, from one geographical area to another, and you are able to establish that from point A, B, and C, most of the people, of course, they are in support of this. That can give you a conclusion that people are really in support of, despite others are not in support. So obviously, I believe that if most of the people and everything in that constitution is from the Gambian people, despite I have something that I am not in agreement with, just because of that thing alone should not make me to fail the entire process or to vote against the entire constitution. That is my position. But I have things that are not captured in that constitution, and I want them to be captured. I have things that are in that constitution that I want them to be amended. I do have, and I raise them in parliament.
And as a National Assembly member, we earlier on spoke about the mood in the National Assembly. And then, you know, you were hearing, analyzing this thing, and I mean, drawing a conclusion that the odds are great, if not greater, actually, than the possibilities for it.
Very well.
I mean, do you think that there could be, I mean, somehow a miracle come Monday, Tuesday, or even after that stage?
There is already a miracle. It's not about whether they are there is already a miracle. Yes, if you and I are here talking about having that fear in us, there is something that we are watching, obviously. So, like I said earlier, I will still emphasize that I don't want to point out any political party or any individual as long as my colleagues are concerned. But if what he is analyzing, I repeat, if what he is analyzing is the case, maybe he did his study and all those things recite regarding political parties and some members of the National Assembly. But if that is the case, then the possibility is very slim and narrow. If, I repeat, like he said, the people from the Barrow's camp, like the 8 MPs who were stuck from the UDP. The UDP.
Well, in Bissau, they will call them the 8 rebels. You know?
Well, I'm not calling them that. I'll call them honorable members.
Well, in Bissau, I mean,
I will call them honorable members, of course. They are honorable members.
Of course, very honorable.
That's how I will call them.
Yeah.
But if that is the case, then the livelihood for this to be passed is very slim. Very, very, very narrow. Because you just need 14 members to block the entire process. What guarantee do you and I have to ensure that their minds are convinced? What guarantee do I have to ensure that they vote in favor of the Constitution? These are questions that we must ask. And you cannot force whosoever to vote either yes or no. they will vote based on their consent. If you believe that voting against the Constitution is your consent, so be it. The Gambian people will make their judgment.
Of course.
History will make judgment on you. You are not just doing that for yourself. You are not just voting yes or no for yourself. But this generation and generations yet to come. And these people who are yet to come, they will always judge you. It is already in record. Judging away from voting to ensure that you are not captured, you will be captured on the list.
Of course.
This we must note.
Say, what actually is motivating the various, if not divergent, positions that we are seeing being taken? What do you think are the motivations?
I think for me, these issues that come with transition. For me, as much as I am so passionate about having a new constitution, the linking from the past, I'm also conscious of the fact that transitions are not always easy. There's a high likelihood that people will drill back and move back to that period of dictatorship. And I wrote about this on the 5th of December 2016, saying that in trying to move forward, what we need to start doing is to dialogue, to discuss, have a conversation, to agree on what kind of future we want for this country. I mean, people will disagree. People will, because, at the end of the day, we're all sovereign citizens. We each have our own right. What the Constitution says about Saikou is the same thing that the Constitution will say about me with the Honorable. But one thing that I feel like we have missed in our whole transitional justice debate, and I will include the constitutional review process, because transitions are also political processes. And then, we're talking about having basically a minority government operating a transitional justice process. The relationship or the people that did not vote for him, whether they support or not, will be something, different. For instance, if that's why we're talking about majoritarian system, having people to be elected with 50% plus. But then you have a minority government. Even though it was a coalition, still we can consider it as a minority government. And so for me, I feel like these are issues. But moving forward, and I think it's even, right now, what we need to do is to have a national conversation, have a national dialogue of all political parties. I don't care whether it is APRC, whoever, every Gambian religious leader, everybody, we need to have that national conversation where we focus on exactly what we want. And I think this was the idea when Matty and others started that. These are the kind of conversations that we wanted to have, because if we like I said before, we all assume that APRC is just going to reject the Constitution because it has a history, and so APRC is a party, for instance, that has been sanctioned by that have registered. They are legal parties, so therefore they need to be also part of the process. We cannot build a country for some and then ignore the rest. Me, I am not interested in that.
Absolutely, and that takes me to my next point. I mean, when you look at the National Assembly members, particularly those that spoke not in so favorable ways of the Constitution, and then you hear them talk about certain things that such as citizenship, such as language, such as how the powers of the executive are constrained. I mean, probably it wouldn't be fair for us to just dismiss it as something that is very narrow-minded. Probably it's very genuine because they spoke quite passionately about it. Well, but do you think that the National Assembly in its entirety have a good reason to reject the Constitution?
At this stage, no. I don't think they have enough reason to do that. But again, they've been elected and they have every legal right to vote, as Honorable Ceesay mentioned, based on their consent. If their consent is to serve one particular interest against the interest of, we know, because like at the end of the day, history would be the judge. People will know who is who. Like I said, the other problem in this country is that we are too small. We know each other. People will just keep, exposing you, saying a lot of things about you. But for me, those are not what is so important. What is important is what the Honorable said. You are look. Let's look at it from this way.
Yeah.
One, we are the sovereign citizens. We are the delegators. We are the people, that say we want to delegate these individuals to represent us in the National Assembly. and you in turn, that one that was delegated, given all the power. You know, we remove some of the powers that we have. Our sovereign power, we give it to you to make decisions on our behalf. And then you are given that same opportunity to identify other people and equally delegate that power to them, like the CRC, for instance, to work. Because when it comes to this, the Parliament should have been the one doing that. But then they decided to delegate others to do that. And every institution has been delegated as well. But then there are certain things. And that's why when it comes to Constitution, we say the final decision must come back to the people, because we are the delegators. We are the final deciders. We are the ones to decide the final outcome of the Constitution. You can hear what we say, you can advise us as our leaders to say, oh, this one will not be right here, fix it here, do this there, do that there, but then throw the ball back to us. And then if we agree, the discussions that we had during the consultation, whether the views of the country or the views of the citizens are reflected in that document could only be determined when it is taken to referendum and when people vote on that. And when people say yes or no, will we blame any National Assembly? But then the other thing that I don't understand, you mentioned, why would a National Assembly member who is given a lot of power cry that they have too much power and they want to give executive the power? The idea to check powers of the president is to ensure that it is the people, the National Assembly is the people's house. It's the people that decide. The executives are there and we have to check them. So I don't understand why would a National Assembly member don't want more powers and then give, who doesn't want power? Why would you take your power and then give it to somebody? And sometimes they engage in this business of, you know, this one has more salary, so money. It is the National Assembly that decides and who have money, who have that. Politics is about who gets what, when, and how. And that is decided by the National Assembly at this stage.
You touched on, I mean, something very important, and he spoke about it earlier. I mean, probably this is going to be a debate between you two. Yeah. At some point, I have to step back, really. But then the next question, which is a very tough one as well, is even if it passes that stage of second reading, it goes to committee stage, whether of the whole house or a select one. The National Assembly still has to make a decision. Do we touch the Constitution or do we not touch it? We know, we spoke about the fact that the National Assembly has the powers to touch the Constitution. But do you think that the National Assembly, one, is better placed to do so, and two, has the moral authority, not just the legal power given to them, but the moral authority to touch a comma in the Constitution, given that they are stakeholders whose interest is represented in the Constitution, plus the Constitution comes from the people and it is going back to them. Do you think?
Yeah, for me, I think I would not take what the law says that the National Assembly should do. If they have the power to touch or not to touch, for me, that should be their decision to make. But then if they feel that there are areas, and based on the general interest and will of the people, if they feel that there are areas that they can, you know, rework a little bit, but they should not be the ones doing that. The CRRC, the Constitutional Review Commission is on standby. They can easily get these people and then to do that. But then everything that they've done there, well, we need to know. You know, whether it is to add a comma or a T, I feel like
the CRC has gone through a process. The zero draft was published.
Yes.
And before that, consultations were done, not only with the elites, but with those even at the grassroots. They've even gone abroad. That has never happened. The zero draft was produced and further consultations were made. And the final draft was produced. Anything that the National Assembly tells the CRC to do will be a command that they cannot say no to.
Well, do
you think the National Assembly should? I'm
not a legal person, so I don't know how they, you know, their relationship and all those things.
Of course.
But then what I know if there's a legal, like those what we are saying, those that can vote or not vote, is their right to do whatever they want to do. But then the debate is about in the issues of morality, and then as you've highlighted, I think if the Assembly accepts and agree that the CRC have done a great job, a majority, and you know, I don't think there will be any need for them to do any touch here or touch there. But here also is where the political process is. For me, what I will prefer, honestly, let the process be decided. Let everything be decided by the people. The National Assembly look at it, oh, you've done a good job, or curriculum maybe suggest some extra way, but then push that to the people. Oh, and then come to the people and then campaign. Yes or no to cancel the vote or whatever, because at the end of the day it has to be to that person.
You have to answer.
Yeah, he knows more of those.
You spoke about the fact that you have the powers to touch the Constitution. I saw a few writings out there. Some people who believe that National Assembly doesn't necessarily have the powers. I mean, but then assuming that you do have the powers, which is given to you by law, do you think morally you should touch it?
Well, I must confess that I am not also a legal expert, but as long as
we're talking on the moral ground now.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah.
The fact that, of course, some of the procedures in the National Assembly, the standing orders of the National Assembly that I know, the Constitution did indicate that the National Assembly, they have the mandate to define in their own way the way they want to run the proceeding of the National Assembly. And that is why we have what we call the standing orders. We have a new edition now, 2019. And it is from the Constitution, of course, which is the supreme law. And that we so did. We have what we call the standing orders. And the standing orders, as I indicated, section clause 62 to clause up to clause 79 did define the procedures to be followed as long as bills are concerned in the National Assembly or presented before the National Assembly.
This is no ordinary bill. This is probably a super bill.
Exactly, I agree. I agree. It's not an ordinary bill.
Yeah.
But like I said, if we get to the committee stage, that is where amendments, remember, I want to make this clear. If we get to a committee stage, I told you that, well, a committee can be tasked to do this assignment.
Yes.
But from there, if we happen to touch this, it is misleading that the National Assembly does not have the power. I have seen others on the social media writing, I don't want to name names, but that is actually misleading as long as the standing orders is concerned and section 101 of the 1997 Constitution. But if we do that assignment, if we come to the committee stage, that is where the consideration stage is done. And in the consideration stage, the standing orders did state that, of course, we do have the powers to amend clauses of the bill that is presented before the National Assembly. We do have the powers, of course, to amend schedules that are in the...
But that's by law.
Draft
but morally...
Yeah, I'm coming to the moral aspect. I just want to clarify this for those that are writing on the social media.
Of course.
But morally, like I said,
yes,
the Gambian people accepted this.
Exactly.
The Gambian people believe that this is how they want to be governed. The Gambian people did indicate that, obviously, this is what we want. Me as an individual represented my people when my people were consulted by an authority that I gave the power to do so. They consulted them. There they are making my tax very easy.
Of course. Because
it would have been my duty, my responsibility to go out there and consult my people. They have to tell me what they really want to see in the constitution. In other countries, normally it is parliament that draft constitution. All that they have to do is to invite experts to work with them, or they will create a CRC, and of course they will work with them. But in this case, we exclusively allow the CRC to do this work for me, meaning they are doing, in fact, they are making my work easy when I should have been doing that. So if that is done, obviously I believe that my people, if not all, but majority of them, their issues or their concerns are addressed in that constitution. If that is done, obviously I don't think, even whereas I personally have an issue in that constitution, obviously I don't think I should go against the will of the people.
Well,
that is my position.
Because, as a citizen, of course, I've read the constitution from cover to cover many times already. I read the report, of the National. It's very tempting to want to touch something there, actually. But then, whether it's morally right, I'm happy. I mean, you said that actually it's not morally okay for the National Assembly to touch it. But do you think that when it goes to the committee stage, it will be touched?
It depends. It depends. Now let's pray that we pass this stage and let's go to the other level. That I would say.
Because now is the second reading.
Yes.
Now this place is where the everything is.
In this stage, they are not to touch anything.
Yes.
In this stage.
In this stage.
So obviously, let's pray that we move to the other stage. That will be another debate.
Yeah. Because
we have to touch.
Absolutely.
And the legal powers are there.
Okay. Because you spoke about a possibility of it.
Yeah.
But don't you think that will bring about, you know, probably upon like a very wild Pandora's box? Because there are certain things that are in the draft constitution that as a country we may never agree on, even as a National Assembly may never agree on, but then accepting the fact that the constitution serves the greater good and therefore no word should be touched and it should go.
Saikou, I think for us, every generation, what I believe, and I keep arguing this with my students, and they say, oh, what about now? That every generation, what you do is to work for the next generation, to work for the future. We should be looking at a constitution and trying to anticipate. We're all young people. We're going to grow. We're going to, be somewhere. But then how would I want a constitution that I am part of right now to govern my life 10 years from now? These are decisions that we need to start making. And for me, like I said, the issue is about whether they should touch or not. For me, the issue is about we need to move forward. We need to move forward. We need to, because of course there is nothing, there is not everything in the 1997 constitution is wrong. But then, politics is also made in terms of perception. A lot of people keep saying that the 1997 constitution was Jammeh's constitution. But everything that we are doing today is built on the 1997 constitution. And this is why also that some of these reform processes are so complicated and very difficult to navigate. And for me, I think the only solution is trying to understand that we are here for the Gambia. And this new constitution has not only defined the Gambia as a people, but has also talked about the Gambia as land. Why do we have 80-kilometer coastline? Every day we're talking about Chinese, we're talking about socio-economic rights. And this new constitution has accepted those things because people are telling them, that these are the things that we want. We want to engage with our government, we want to do this. And so for me, the moral obligation of the CRC was to capture the views and wishes of the people based on their own independent mind, which they have done. And, there are extra studies, independent studies, outside the CRC that also did studies and conclude that people are in support of the draft. People are in support of also some of the major issues that have to do with democracy have been captured. For me, the other things could be negotiated, but issues of time limit, issues of majoritarian, these are electoral problems. We already seen it in the sub-region. In Guinea, they are talking about that. In Cote d'Ivoire, they are talking about. These are issues that will create problems in a country. And what we are trying to do right now is to ensure that we prevent these things from happening. I don't want to be here 10 years with a new constitution and people start killing themselves because of one person is elected or the other person refused to be elected. We need to think ahead. We need to look at the major structural issues that define this constitution. And for me, it has to do with the politics. And if the politics is well defined, it's very clear. For me, the rest, it could be negotiated. It could be pass it and then after pass a bill or do something else. But we need to look at the basics. What are the basics? Issues of time limits, issues of majoritarian system, ensuring that power gets to the people and through the decentralization. For me, these are the issues. And majority of Gambians want these issues and they have supported.
Well, viewers, if you are watching us, this is to remind you that we are having a conversation around the draft constitution, which has been presented to the National Assembly last week. And with me to discuss this, Sait Matty. Sait is a political scientist, and I always describe him as one of the most dynamic young persons that you can find in this country, very sharp mind and independent-minded as well. And then we have, I call him the most popular National Assembly member, Omar.
And the youngest.
And the youngest, actually. You remember the last time when one of the NAMs was speaking, and then he said all the National Assembly were elderly people, except you who were the youngest. So we discussed a lot of issues about the process that is involved, or that we've taken so far as a country to get to where we are and how important it is. Probably we should now go into the final details of the Constitution, the draft one. Not perhaps specific provisions, but we can do our own general principles and merits debate around the Constitution. When you look at it, what is it that is about this Constitution that strikes you the most? What? I
mean, I'm a political guy and I know how term limit issues have been very crucial in the conflicts that we have seen in our sub-region. So for me, basically, is about the political processes. Because for me, I believe that every citizen, as long as you are Gambian, you are, the Constitution does not recognize me. I don't even know what ethnic group or what language I speak. I see myself as a Gambian, and that's what I am. And for me, I have that right, one vote to vote, and I want to make sure that my votes, when I vote, it counts. And for me, I think this new Constitution has captured that, and it has also, provided mechanisms that will prevent us from getting into conflict. Even transition, this 1997 Constitution doesn't know how we move from one government to another, because it was not designed for those things. It was basically designed for one person. Well, I'm 30 years, so now I want to make it 30 years. Up there, remove that. Yeah. So even transition about who comes else, was not well articulated. And now we are moving. We are in the 21st century. And so as a country is developing, challenges like our population is growing, so the issue of socio-economic rights are also very important to me. What we've seen in Faraba Banta, for instance, when those security agents killed the protesters, it's just about issues of socio-economic rights. The fishing that we are seeing in Tanje, Katong, and all those other places are issues of socio-economic rights. Yes, I'm a citizen first, but I'm not a citizen if my stomach is not, if I'm hungry, because the citizenship at the end of the day, it is what the economic rights, the things that you enjoy from your country, from your sovereign wealth, is also what counts. So I think the new Constitution have clearly expanded those rights and then made education a right, and the other aspect is that in terms of gender, I am pro having more women in the National Assembly. Yes. And so even though the kind of quota system that a lot of people were looking at 30%, they have expanded it, ensuring that we can have more women either through the political parties, but also through the regional elections. So those things are very critical for me. But then the other aspect is the decentralization. I feel finally this new Constitution have made the local government authority to be autonomous. And autonomous here, we're not talking about just, you're a local government, but the local government need the finance, they need to be in charge of their administration. They also need to be politically independent, because the only thing that is in Nyamina is, it is only the people in Nyamina is that understand their needs. Me from Bakau, I am more into maybe the tourism, and people have different, different aspects. And what the local government does is to ensure that it brings development to the doorstep of the people. And I think also the issue of chiefs, we have limited them. Your traditional authority, be traditional. Don't get into the political process. Don't divide your people when you are supposed to be, the alpha of everybody. You cannot be picking and choosing, because the politics is also about that. So for me, when you look at all these political processes and also the expanded rights, I will say I prefer this Constitution to the old Constitution.
Because just to come in there, when you see a lot of write-ups, a lot of people are talking about how beautifully written the Constitution is and how it is expanded, if not generously constructed, fundamental human rights. And we've seen the economic and social rights, which were in the 1997 Constitution reduced to non-enforceable rights, and they are now enforceable in the draft Constitution. How important is this?
Yeah, it is very important, because people are complaining and arguing that there are resources. Just look at Faraba. Faraba is a clear case. And there are so many communities where there is mining taking place, and what is the community getting out of that? You talk about Gunjur, Katong, fishing. There is a lot of protests here and there. What is the community getting about that? Community members are part and parcel of this country, and also they have to be, if resources are found within their own environment, they also need to be that. But the other aspect, in terms of the socio-economic rights, we're talking about education, we're talking about the right to education, the right to health. We complain of poverty because why we continue to be poor? One, we don't educate our women, we don't provide them the greatest opportunity. We prefer boys going to school than women. But then this new Constitution have made education, free, and also more of a compulsory. Everybody needs to go to school, because the country cannot move if people are not, are not educated. We need to know, how do we deal among ourselves, but more so how do we deal with the international world. And I think that is important. Healthcare. Right now we're talking about the Gambian Women's Life Matter. We're talking about health, you know, maternal mortality. Of course, the problem has to do with the state, but it also has to do with us. But then if you educate the people, if you educate the woman, he'll be able to address some of those issues. Sometimes you don't need to be giving people food all the time. You just need to create the right environment, the right framework, and people will pursue their with their interests. And the other aspect, I think, I heard one of the members of parliament was saying that is the fact that the constitution has defined what the Gambia as a territory is. You know?
Yeah.
You know, the land, the sea, the ocean, and this is something that we own. If you have your house, you want to know where your demarcations, you want to know what you have there. And I think this new constitution has finally tell us this is what you have and this is what it is. So for me, generally, of course, there are some limitations. There are some limitations, but then I looked at my life 10 years from now with this new constitution, or my life 10 years from now with the 1997 constitution. I'm going with this new constitution.
And that's how he perfectly described it in the National Assembly. You said the choice is clear. It is between having the 1997 constitution to govern us, or to have a new constitution that will usher in the Third Republic. You are not only a National Assembly member, but you are also a young person who is passionate about the lives of your people. And your generation will have to live through this constitution and probably make some of the most important decisions on it. How do you see it? Are you happy? Are you delighted when you read through the constitution, not just because it comes from you people, like captures their voices, but also you truly believe that this is what we want as a country? Do you see it that way?
Well, yes. Like I said earlier, of course, I am in support of the Constitution, and the fact that the Constitution defines every aspect of the society, and the fact that the Constitution definitely embedded some of the rights of the individual, or they expatiate the rights of the individuals. I do argue with a colleague that all these rights that are embedded in this constitution, do you think that the government will be able to fulfill all these rights? If this is accepted, for instance, and the government is unable, doesn't have the capacity or the machinery to ensure that some of these rights are fulfilled, what do you think will happen? I can always challenge the government to court. I can always do A, B, and C, and the government, if I should win the case, what do you think will be the repercussion? The government will keep on investing money from A, B, C, and D. I told him, well, right, you are right. Not actually everything that is captured here will be able to, the government will be able to fulfill that at the instant. You talk of the commissions, everything that is listed, you must know about different commissions that are established there. Will the government be able to establish and sponsor or have the resources or to resource all those commissions if they are established? These are long-term plans. These are things that we can actually handle in the long run. But we want to have them inculcated in this constitution. If we have the resources, if we have the capacity to establish them, to finance them, to have them functioning, obviously we can go by it and have them established. But there is nothing wrong for them to be captured in the draft constitution. But to me, it is better than waiting until we deem it fit. We want to come through the National Assembly by an act of parliament. When we have the opportunity to put them here now. The most important thing here is the political class. Because all these political parties, all these politicians that you are seeing, they are part of the society. And the people, of course, that are voting, they are part of the society. Every individual political party that you ask today, the person will tell you, oh, my party will tell you, we represent the Gambian people. And it is the Gambian people who are actually in that political party. So obviously, these people who are actually out there, we must understand what the document entails. So that if we go out there to campaign, because political parties will be given the opportunity to go out there and campaign, yes or no.
Absolutely.
So it's like the people campaigning. Because I told my members in parliament that you cannot just say yes in order to safeguard your integrity. You cannot just say yes in order to protect yourself as a person. You cannot just say yes in order to impress the people, the CSOs and the international community. While you are going out there to poison the mind of the people, who will at the end of the day play a critical role as long as voting is concerned. So it doesn't tell well about you as an individual. So the political class is very important. You talk of the issue of the term limit, of course you talk of 50+1 and so on. We have been crying for this as young people. If this term limit is not there, when shall we have the opportunity to come up? You want to be a president, don't you? I want to be a president.
Absolutely no.
Absolutely.
I'm better off as a journalist,
so
but just briefly, as your parting words, because we seem to have run out of time.
Good.
I mean, how do you see the issue of, separation of powers? We understand a lot of powers has been placed in the hands of the National Assembly. The issue of separation of powers and checks and balances between the three arms, and how do you see it played out in the Constitution?
Yeah, separation of powers, of course, it is very important, but it does not necessarily mean that these institutions cannot work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Separation of power doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
So obviously, maybe there is need for this institution to be independent, especially if you talk of now, for instance, the National Assembly. We are not autonomous. We solely and wholly depend on the ministry to have our functions carried out. Which I can tell you that sometimes we will be embarking on a particular function or activity, we will dip our pocket. Now, as National Assembly members, this I can tell you.
But this constitution, the new one, well, the draft one, seeks to change that.
Exactly, this is what I am saying. I'm just trying to, what we are experiencing. I'm just trying to relate the relevance of this current constitution, the draft constitution we have. Why do we have to go in for it? And the essence of having separation of power.
Absolutely.
And obviously, you will understand that maybe others debated, of course, I equally debated the issue of this confirmation, as long as separation of powers are concerned. Do we need to have the president nominating individuals as cabinet members and being confirmed by the National Assembly members? I am one of those who argue that in as much as we want to promote a separation of power, then I believe that we should allow the cabinet to do their appointment. The National Assembly as an oversight function, you cannot be a player and a referee.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you play part in the appointment of an individual minister, then obviously if the minister is not capable, or if this person was appointed based on the political class, it doesn't tell well. So allowing the cabinet to do this appointment. As an oversight institution, if you are not satisfied with that ministry, if the ministry does something that is to the detriment of the people, you always have the chance to cast a vote of no confidence on that very minister. So these are some of the things that we can always calculate along the line.
Thank you. Finally said, we have run out of time.
Yes.
History is about to be made here. And as a political scientist, how do you see this? Very briefly.
Saikou, I also want to briefly say that this new constitution has instituted issues of fiscal transparency. We talk about corruption in this country. Corruption is killing everyone right now, and this new constitution want to address that. But for me, I have two options: to go left or to go right. Left is back, right is forward. And I think every country must think about how to move forward. And we've been stuck, and we wanted change. We work to get that change. What we need to do is now that we need to understand where is Gambia at right now, and what is at stake, and what we need to do. But there is always need for dialogue. Politics will always be politics, but politics is not about is not about killing the other person. Politics is about understanding what the other person wants and try to see how to give it to that person, or trying to see, you know, what you want and how to get it from other people. So what we need to, politics is part of our lives. It needs to be there. But at the end of the day, what is most important is about the future of this country. What is important is the fact that we are part of the Committee of Nations, and we need to have a new constitution that can also align and converge with some of the international agreements that we want to do. But most importantly, we cannot be an international embarrassment. A small country that was celebrated in 2016, and now just to pass that constitution from a second reading, everybody is laughing at you. And for me, basically, I think this is what needs to be done. And the final decision, whether to have a new constitution or not, should be the decision of the people. We are the ones that delegated some of the National Assembly members, and it is our opportunity now to decide whether we want it or not, and not them.
Well, to be or not to be, we are back to the question, and we will know that either on Monday or Tuesday or perhaps another day. But to those of you that are watching us, we say thank you for being there. We've heard from very incredible people and wonderful thinkers, Sait, Matty and Omar Ceesay, and that's all we have for you for today. And be here next Saturday, I think another conversation will be there as we continue to dissect issues around the Constitution. Thank you all so much. And thank you to Kerfatu and IRI.
Thank you.
Love like fire. Wow. Love like fire. Xam ngeen rek affaire bi xam ngeen fan la? Skincare la. 2020 lañ wax de. Waaw. Fii nag mooy kër fan kër zero tache. Perfect skin. Skincare saa su ne rek niñ ko dee defee rek. Loo lañ soxlaati rek. Maanaam bu dee am problème ci seen skin yéen xam ngeen fan la fii ngeen di ñëw suma xarit yeeg am di jàmm yi nga xam ne taas daf lañ sonaloon xam nga doon xeesal bel laka xum éneew ma lañ ko nag waaye just in case comme ni ko gars yi di waxee rek en cas just in case loolu xew xam ngeen fi ngeen di ñëw skincare plus si yu baax rek la ñoo dox nag ay baax rek fu ne la ñoo dem ci réew mi di lañ indi rek nag products yu baax du Paris du Italie du USA du fi mu nekk nii sax boole nañ ci nag Sweden fu nekk lañ leen a indilee products bu dee tamit nag da nga ñuul rek ñu lay jamaa natural beauty that melanin dripping we do have stuff for you as well emuñ si skincare products rek ñu ngi ci cuub yi tamit fu ne la ñoo jaar in fact sax last commercial bi ñu defoon waxuñ leen woon ne dañoo dox ci ay kawar 9A grade rek nag waaw we do have bundles as well hair si lu ne la ñoo dox ñun ñu ngi ci rafetal jigéen rek luy taaral jigéen rek waaw boo leen di tukki tamit bëggoon rek classic suitcase ñu dañoo dox ci ay Samsonite duñ dee indi any brand of suitcases though other than Samsonite comme li ma dee wax rek boo eggee airport dëri Samsonite dafa am nuñ laa xoolee waaw ngeen ne lan nag waaw skin ci moom la ñu gën a xamee nag skin care products ci moom la ñu gën a xamee ñu ngi dox tamit bentey tamit si ay dàlla man waaye man nag skin care mooy suma specialty xam nga rek jigéen bu sa xar kanam réglé loo def mu jag am nañ Patricia Reiner Kiwi Eye the whole range Lighten Up Gold Tomatine I mean the list can just go on and on and on and on lépp loo xam ne rek luy taaral jigéen la ci yooyu rek la ñoo dox skin care plus nag emuñ si Gambia rek ñu ngi United States ñu ngi Gambia fii ba pare bu dee yaa ngi anywhere in Europe mun nañ la ko mail within 3 days rek ñetti fan rek nga jot say diw emuñ si loolu rek dañ laa consult tamit balaa ñu laa jaay diw dinañ def a free consultation pour wax la rek exactly li nga xam ne moo méngoo ak sa kanam dinañ leen wax tamit ne rek am nañ perfumes fragrances men's shirts accessories we do dresses as well we do blouses I mean we do shoes name it we do them Skincare Plus 2020 is our year of perfection zero task fi mu nekk nii réew mi fii kenn waratu fi task kenn waratu fi am problème kanam kenn waratu fi am problème yu picca boo ko amee dafa fekk ne rek ñëwuloo ci place bi fii love like fire bring my love like fire
Stewart & Co. Solicitors, a legal excellence firm in London that can help you with all aspects of your legal work. If you are looking at immigrating to the United Kingdom, Stewart & Co. can help you to set up business, buy houses in the UK, and will deal with all your legal works from start to finish.
For all your general immigration work, we can help you with that as well. If you apply for any form of visa, whether student visas, settlement visas, marriage visas, or a child wanting to come to the United Kingdom to settle with the family, we can help you to achieve your goals.
Stewart & Co. Solicitors, a legal excellence firm specializing in conveyancing, immigration, litigation, family law, personal injury, licensing, no win, no fee. Contact us today at www.sk-solicitors.com.
Yo, ini bara.
Alright, okay. Big bar.
Welcome.
Basically, lot of la me along is cool, man, that I can really relax.
What the madam?
Yeah, that's
What the madam?
yeah.
Let me do somebody.
That's fine.
Grand villa.
That's fine.
Slowly. Yes. No.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people are basically me alone can very relaxed. So it's basically that I can understand.
Nina Fani say what? Nidia, Nena Grand Villa is the best guest house in the Gambia.
Beji andikam Grand Villa Guest House. Na labungul bebe senyaring adu na bungul bebe nyarandiring coming ibela fila ila suwe taranyame. Until Grand Villa na kiliano la lafino wale mukanwatin telkang. Na ye sabati Grand Villa yela kodo na fa kalamuta.
Oh man, this is like a paradise.
I know.
I so much love this place.
Thank you.
Trust me, I love this place.
You can move somebody and what you want.
Yeah.
Kapin Jang and no to Gambia. Grand Villa.
I tell
Yes,
you.
I
I love this place. Okay. I love this place, man. Oh yeah.
Ni lefta na kuo keso sotola. Futama Oljuntum Paradise Estate. Mbaya kumandiroke 7527218. Wale futana website auto www.grandvillaguesthouse.com. Grand Villa Guest House.
Miss V Designer Outlet is the #1 quality and affordable stop shop for all your needs. Get your evening dresses, suit and ties, office wears for both ladies and gentlemen, beach wears, sport wears, pure leather shoes for men, quality belts, bags, heels for all beautiful ladies, original perfumes, accessories, and a lot more. Find us at Kololini Road opposite Gaddafi Mosque at the Aqua Preacher Station, or call us on 295-3411 or 764-2486. Miss B Designer Outlet. Shop right, look good.